Hello everybody and welcome to the Dark Finds podcast. On today's episode, we have MMA fighter Yann Oliveira. Yann is not only the Combat FC Welterweight champion, but he also runs a successful construction company. I found his story so inspiring. He left Brazil as a teenager and landed in the US of A. He faced adversity and setbacks, but came out swinging like a fighter. Honestly, I love these types of stories and talking to people that have that killer do or die mentality. I hope you all enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Now roll the music. The best time would have come, Paddy's Day there. It was. No, it wasn't in Dublin for it, but normally it's absolutely mental. It's like people drinking from 11 o'clock in the morning, so you can only imagine by 9 o'clock at night it is chaos.
That's incredible. That is incredible. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. You haven't been to Ireland? It's on the bucket list, is it?
It's on the bucket list, yeah. Next year. So I have a few trips to make this year. And but next year I'm coming to Ireland. Absolutely, that's my plan. So
definitely, man, get combat fighting over here.
That I would love to. Well, to be honest with you, there's a very good chance I'm gonna get pulled to the UFC next. So,
man,
yeah. So I'm 6-0 right now. They actually had been in touch already, and they were planning on pulling me after my last fight. So. I am going to fight again May 24th. I have a fight scheduled for May 24th. We haven't announced who I'm fighting yet. It's going to get announced on Monday. But depending how that goes, there's a very good chance I'm getting pulled to the UFC next. So,
wow. And man, how does that feel? So is that something you've been working for your whole life, or is it just like this is another step on the journey of Yann?
No, it's something I've always dreamed of. You know, it's something I've always wanted to do, and we can get really in depth into how it all started and why it stopped and why it started again, and if you want to, so you can better understand why. So
yeah, because I'm really interested in that, because when I was I was on Underdog and stuff like that, looking up before our interview and stuff like that, and I'm like, that's a big gap, 8 years.
Yes.
So, again, but even actually, before we even get into that, maybe let's go back to the very, very, very start of because it's a very small percent of people that say, okay, I want to get in and get punched in the head or punch people in the head, and I want to do that for a living, or if it's for I'm bored, I want to do it, or whatever. There's a drive there. So let's go back there. Where did that drive even come out of? Or was it happenstance? Or what's the story there, Yann?
Yeah, so what really got me started in MMA, the real truth behind it was I got bullied a little bit when I first moved to America from Brazil.
Okay.
So there were a couple times I had a lot of great friends. I had a lot of people that stuck up for me, that were by my side, but there was a couple of those kids in school that just wanted to be bullies and just kind of, treat you like assholes, So am I allowed to cuss? I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss or not.
Oh yeah, walk away, man. Yeah, this is no holds barred.
All right. So there were a couple guys like that used to treat me like assholes in school, and there was this one kid in particular that he used to bully me a little bit, and he would always walk by me in the hallway. And he'd bump his shoulder into me, you know what I mean? And kind of intimidate me a little. And he kind of had the fame of being like a big bad dude, like people didn't really want to fight him, And I remember one time I was with a friend of mine. I said, if he does that again, I'm gonna punch him in his face. I'm gonna fight him. I don't care if he kicks my ass, but I'm not gonna allow him to keep bullying me,
Yeah.
And my buddy was kind of like, go for it. He was like, hey man, if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. And sure enough, like, a week or so went by and we walked by each other again, and he literally went out of his way to bump into me and to push me off in the hallway. And I immediately stopped. I dropped my backpack and I looked at him. I said, let's go. I was like, you want to fight? I was like, let's fight. And he kind of looked at me like, he was like, you're not actually serious. He was like, yeah, okay. And I'm like, dude, you're either going to stop bullying me, you're going to stop running into me, or you're going to fight me. It's one or the other. I was like, one way or another, you need to stop. And he looked at me. He was like, if you want to get fucked up, then let's go. So he dropped his backpack. And man, and it was just second nature to me because I've played soccer my whole life. And the first thing that came to mind from, watching fights before and from, I did some capoeira a little bit here and there in the past, nothing serious, never took anything serious. But the second he put his hand up and he came towards me, I just kicked his leg so freaking hard, man.
That's the soccer.
Dude, that was the soccer in me. I kicked the shit out of him. He like fell right on the ground. His legs came out from underneath him. He fell on the ground. The second he fell, I just started kicking him like as if I was kicking a soccer ball. I just started kicking him wild. And he didn't know what to do. He was kind of like trying to push me away as I'm kicking him, and he tried to get up. And when he tried to get up, I kicked him right in his face. And he fell down again. I got on top of him, and I just started pounding on him, just punching him. And he started crying. This kid started crying, like, stop, begging me to stop. And dude, and my buddy immediately like just starts pulling me off of him. And he was like, dude, let's get out of here. He was all excited. He's happy. He was like, let's get out of here before you get in trouble. And dude, we literally like picked up our backpacks and just ran down the hall, and nothing. I never got in trouble for it, right? So no teachers saw it or anything because we ran the second it happened. And he got his ass beat. But one thing I tell you, he never even looked at me after that. He never even looked at me. If him and I walked by each other in the hallway, he wouldn't even look at me. He would look straight, he'd look the other way, or he would pretend like I wasn't there. He wouldn't pretend like he didn't see me. And so the reason why this background story is very important is because this buddy of mine after that. So of course we're running down the hallway laughing like clowns, and and we go to our next class, and he's sitting next to me. He's looking at me. He was like, "What the fuck just happened?" He was like, "What was that?" And I'm like, "I don't know." He was like, "Dude, I didn't know you could fight like that." And I'm like, me neither. I was like, I didn't know either. I was like, I've been in fights before in my life, but it wasn't a total beat down the way it went down. It wasn't a total beat down by any means, But I was like, I didn't know I could fight like that either. So he was like, dude, you know what you need to do? He was like, you need to do MMA. And I'm like, what's MMA? He was like, mixed martial arts. I was like, oh, like the UFC stuff? Like, he was like, yeah, UFC, exactly, UFC. And I'm like, are you fucking high? I'm like, dude, no way. I'm like, I'm not doing that. And I was like, that's crazy. And he was like, no. He was like, it's really not like that. He goes, my cousin, he trains and he fights. And he was like, honestly, I think you could kick my cousin's ass, dude. That was pretty crazy. I've never seen my cousin beat anybody up like that. He was like, you should try. And I kept telling him no. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I was like, I was like, dude, I don't want to go into the gym and train with all these meatheads who are just gonna kick my ass the second I walk in. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And he was like, dude, I promise you, it's not like that. I've been to his practices before. Everybody's super nice. You actually learn the technique. You don't just walk in and fight. Because in my head, I thought you just walked into this place and you would just fight people. I thought that's how it worked. I didn't understand exactly how it worked.
The training,
Right. So
but I think to go back to that bully, right?
Yeah.
I'd say he not only did he not look at you, I'd say he never looked at another Brazilian person.
I don't think so either.
Man, that's not the people you want to mess around with.
No. We listen when it's time to fight, we fight. We get dirty, we'll fight. So but yeah, man, it was pretty incredible. And after a lot of convincing, he was like, dude, try one class. He was like, for me, just try one. I'll come with you. He goes, we'll go together and just try one time. He was like, if you hate it, you don't have to do it again, but I think you should do it, dude. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, I'll try it. So I went to one class, and it just so happened that day, the practice was revolved around kicking. It was kicking technique that they were doing that day. Yeah. So to me, it was like second nature because The second I watch you do something, I'll be able to do it. I'll be able to do it. And so I'm watching the way they were throwing kicks to the bag and to somebody else holding a massive pad. And I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
that's a lot like kicking a soccer ball. You just got to turn your hips into it. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I just started. So we do the warm up and everything. And I didn't really get to meet the coach. The coach didn't ask any questions. He just said, "Oh, hey, welcome in. Everybody. This is Yann." And I never told him anything about me. So
Yeah.
my buddy just said, "Hey, I got this kid that wants to train. That wants to try a class." So that was about it. So so I'm kicking. We're doing a kicking technique. We barely even threw a punch that day. It was more so kicking. And after the
Yeah.
class, the coach asked me. He came up to me. He was like, "Hey, how long have you been fighting for?" And I was like, "Never." I was like, "This is my first class." And he looked at me. He was like, "Oh yeah, okay." He was like, "No, like seriously, like where did you train before?" I said, "No, no, no, no. You don't understand. I've never trained before." I said, "This is my first class. I've never done Muay Thai before. I had never done Muay Thai in my life." And he was
Yeah.
like, he's now he's puzzled. He's looking at me like,
Yeah.
"Dude, where'd you learn how to kick like that?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"I've played soccer my whole life, and in the beginning of the class, you showed how to do it, so I just imitated what you did." He was like, "That's pretty freaking incredible." He was like, "For somebody who's never done that, and you can kick like that," he was like, "That's amazing." And
And
he was
Jan,
like,
I can imagine, right, for someone like in your mind frame at the time to get that validation, man, at a young
"Yeah,
age, and especially, if there's bullies and stuff like that, that must be empowering then. Then you feel like, okay, whoa, I just got like recognition, I just got empowerment, and this feels great. you know?
that's exactly how it felt." I was just like, "Oh crap, maybe I can do this. Maybe
Yeah.
I am pretty good. Maybe I can fight." So it felt good. Like he said the right things to keep me
Yeah.
coming back. He said the right things to keep me coming back. And so
Yeah.
once he said that, and he was just like, "Dude, you need to come back. You need to keep fighting. You need to keep training." And he was like, "I'd love to teach you more." He was like, He was like, "I think you really got a future in this. You could be really good if this is your first class." He was like, "You're kicking better than people who have been here training for like 2 or 3 years." He was like, "You look like you've been doing this all along." And so the first thing I did was I was just like, I was like, "Yeah, I'll come back." He was like, "Dude, tomorrow is grappling. Come back tomorrow." I was like,
Yeah.
"All right." So I came back. But the first thing I did when I got home that night, I went on YouTube and I was just like,
Right.
I started researching, right? I just when I started watching, I had watched MMA fights before. I had watched a bunch of them before. I always loved
Yeah.
MMA, but I didn't know MMA enough as MMA. I knew it as more like just the UFC and cage fighting. That's all I knew it
UFC.
by
That's
back
it.
in the
Yeah.
day at that time. So then I started watching a ton of videos of boxing and grappling. And dude, I got lost in it. I was just watching videos till like 3 in the morning,
Yeah.
and got
Down the
up the
rabbit
next
hole.
day. Yeah. Then I got up the next day to go to school and I'm all excited. I can't wait to go to training tonight. And I went right to training and of course, when I went with the guys that had been already training, they just did whatever they wanted. They'd take me down and hold me down. They did whatever. But once he would pair me up with guys that had been training for only like 6 months to a year or a few months, dude, I was dominating them. I was taking them down. I was holding them down. They couldn't take me down or nothing. And this guy is just looking at me like, who the fuck is this kid? Like, this is his second
Yeah.
class, and he's like, how does he know how to do these things? But I never told him I was watching a whole lot of YouTube. Literally,
Yeah.
I learned a lot from YouTube. But but then he was just like, dude, I hope you keep coming back. He was like, I hope you
Yeah.
keep training. And
Definitely.
literally,
And Jan,
literally,
just to jump
bro.
in there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So with some of that coming, like, was there a genetic potential there? Were you like, did you have natural strength? Was it
Yes.
an aptitude to learn really quickly? Like even off the YouTube videos? What was accelerating that kind of uh what was accelerating that kind of potential?
So there's a few things, and one thing is going to be that I've been an athlete my whole life. I played sports
Okay.
my entire life.
Yeah.
That's all I've done. since I was a little kid. And the other thing is, I was born and raised in a little farm town in Brazil. So,
Okay.
so I have that freakish farm boy strength, you know.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, so some of my friends, what they call it retard strength. That's what my friends call it. And one of my teammates, Mateus, Take, he fought on combat. He fought on karate
Yeah.
combat and stuff like that. When I trained with him, like what he calls me is he actually gave me a nickname of animal strength. He was like, dude,
Yeah.
you have the strength of an animal. It's like grappling with you and training with you. It feels like I'm trying to handle a horse. You know, he was
Yeah.
like, he was like, you have animal strength. So I've had that my whole life since I was a kid, and that helped a lot. For example, when I fought at 145 pounds, I
Yeah.
could deadlift. There's a video of me on Instagram. If you dig deep enough, at that
Yeah.
point I was fighting at 145. I was deadlifting 600 pounds, fighting.
Whoa, that is serious going for 145.
Exactly. A 145er deadlifting 145 600 pounds. That's crazy weight. And the only reason why I made that video is because I was talking to a friend of mine one time. He was like, "No way you can do it." I said, "Okay, next time I go to practice, I'll just do it," you know?
Yeah.
And I did it. And I posted a video and he messaged me. He was like, "What the fuck was that?" He was like,
What's wrong with you?
yeah, what's wrong with you? You know? So I think it was the fact that I've always been a natural athlete my whole life.
Yeah.
I always had freakish strength, and
Yeah.
I've always had the ability of learning things extremely easy. You know, it's always been easy for me to learn things. So I think
Which is like a
those
holy grail almost of factors
right,
coming in. Like,
right,
natural, like, because genetics play such a big role in everything.
yeah,
I used to do competitive bodybuilding for, 12 year ago, which I was terrible because I
yeah,
didn't have the genetic potential. But it
yeah,
dictates so much. Like, it's literally the key in the lock. You either have it or you don't.
that's right,
So when you have that, and then you have almost another perfect storm of, okay, I can learn shit really well, and I'm driven. That's creating that kind
yeah,
of freak that is going to go in and be able to
yeah,
withstand these battles. Because again, it's not a common thing. Not
right,
everyone is jumping in, putting on gloves, and going in. You know, trading blows with each other. And that's where I'm fascinated from. I think this is where my interest in hearing your story comes from. Is this is an uncommon thing. I want to understand the genesis. Where does this, like, where's the story behind this? And I think we're
yeah.
really driving deep into that. And so to continue on with this, Jan. So you're in the gym there. They're like, whoa, okay, this guy's got a bit of talent. What happens then? Like, is it like, are they saying to you, okay, we want to get you into a few fights, or like we want to give you, extra coaching and all that? What does the story go from there?
The story went is within 3 months he booked me a fight.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so there was another kid from my gym that was supposed to fight who was about my weight, but he got injured, and he was, he just kind of said, hey, and his name was actually Lucas. Lucas was supposed to fight, and he got injured, and they were just like, hey, Lucas got injured, he's not going to be able to fight. He looked at me, he goes, hey, do you want to fight? And I was like, do you think I'm ready to fight? I was like, and I said, that's more up to you than up to me. And he was just like, I think you're ready to fight. I think that you're going to go in there and do just fine. And
Yeah.
so I said, fine, then I'll fight. Let's do it. And and that's it. And within 3 months, man, I was cutting weight. I never cut weight before in my life. I knew nothing about it. These guys were literally teaching me from scratch. I never wrestled in high school or anything, so I've never cut weight. I did nothing. I mean, there was one point I was sitting in my car with a sauna suit. Sorry, I didn't even have a sauna suit. I had trash bags. I didn't even know what a sauna suit was. Brother, I am dead serious. I was wearing trash bags all over my body with sweatshirts and beanies and all kinds of stuff. And I am inside of my car with the heat cranked up to as high as it could possibly go. And I'm sitting in there cutting weight for this fight. And I made
that is unreal to think of, because that is like, I'm at this age. How do I do a very economical weight cut? And it's trash bags, beanie
yeah,
hats, and and the car heater turned up to max.
yep. I went like I went like 2 days without drinking water. I went like 2 days without eating food because I just didn't know how it was going to work. And
Yeah.
but I made weight. My opponent ended up missing weight by like 5 pounds. Um, it was, to be honest with you, this opponent of mine, we're very good friends now. We've always
Okay.
after we fought we became very good friends. And so not speaking badly of him, but he did miss weight by 5 pounds, and I made weight. I showed up to weight by myself, and I'm like, hey, listen, that's not the right weight. But his coach was the owner and promoter of the league that we were fighting in. So his coach was like, no, 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 no. You made the mistake. The weight is supposed to be the weight that he made. You just came in
Of
lighter. And I'm
course.
like, dude, that is not correct. That is not right. I was like, that's not what
Yeah.
it is. The weight I made is the weight that the fight's supposed to be in. And he was like, no, no, big mistake. He made weight. It's all good. Do you still want to fight or not? So what was I going to say? No. I was like, nah, we'll still fight. I was like, we'll still fight. But he did not make weight. I don't care what you say. But
And Jan, what age were you at this stage? What's
I think I
roughly what
was
age?
I think I was like 18 or 19 years old,
Still
something like that.
teenage years. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a kid still, you know.
Yeah.
I was still young, you know.
Yeah.
So I might have been like 19 years old, but yeah, man. So, but yeah, and that's where the obsession grew bigger, you know, and the whole thing just it made me fall in love, the and it was one of those things that like I didn't feel scared. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you're gonna be scared, but it's okay. You just gotta fight your fear." But I didn't feel that fear that people told me I would feel. I wasn't scared at any moment. I was excited because I was like, "This is new," and and I get into a fist fight where I don't get in trouble for, and
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
had family there, friends, and
Yeah.
I still remember when they called my name and I walked out, my music's playing, people were screaming my name. I'm like, man, this is pretty cool. I was like, is this
This
what it
feels
feels
good.
like? Yeah, I was like, is this what it feels like to be famous? Because right now I feel this much famous. I feel a little famous
Yeah.
right now. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm a big shot, even though I know I'm not, but I feel like it because I got my music playing and I got all these people screaming my name. I'm like, this, and people are clapping. This is pretty cool,
And man, that
So
goes back to that extra validation. So, you know,
yeah,
you're coming in, you went in, you got really good validation off your coaches early on, and that, man, that builds up the ego, it builds up the self-esteem, which is so
yeah,
important, especially during them teenage years, man. Because if you miss out on self-esteem, then you're just going to be crippled as you go through life. You're going to see
yeah,
everything as an enemy, and everything's going to be negative. You get a big bump of self-esteem there. It's going to up your testosterone. It's going to up all them endorphins. Then you have that when you're starting out. Then you feel them bright lights, man, and that's your that self-esteem is rising again. And man, that's what's right. Like, I think the thing I love about this story is because there's two types of people. There's one type of people that'll be really afraid and they'll still do it, or there's the
yeah,
type of people that will see it as, okay, this isn't anxiety, this is excitement. And I think
yeah,
that drive, like, that's there's a big fork in the road, whether it's like, is the person motivated by fear, or are they motivated by that excitement? Because it feels like our nervous system pretty much registers it as the same. So if you feel fear or excitement, nervous system, it's the exact same impulse, but what literally outputs the feeling is our mind. So if I'm feeling, and this goes into a huge thing of the psychology of people, of fighters, of any walk of life. It's how we interpret them signals. So you interpreted it as, this is excitement, and that's a really important thing, and
yeah.
that's, I think, worth drilling down to as well. I suppose, can you talk to, why wasn't it fearful, or was it natural, or were you being like, okay, I'm going to think this is excitement or whatever, or was it just completely natural? This is exciting to me, I don't feel bored. I feel energized. What was going on in your head?
It was excitement. I just felt excited.
Yeah.
I just thought it was cool that I could just go in there and get into a fist fight and not get in trouble for it, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and to me, and also it was going back to being a natural athlete my whole life and trying something new. You know, it was that whole thing of like, okay, this is completely new. I'm gonna give it a shot, and we're gonna see how it goes. You know, I'm gonna find out if I'm good or not. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's man, fighting is
How did
addicting.
that first fight go then?
So
How did it feel? I suppose, how did it feel and how did it go? What was the result as well?
yeah, so I lost that fight by decision, right?
Okay.
That was an amateur fight. I
Yeah.
lost. It was 2 3 minute rounds. That's what the fight was like,
Yeah.
2 3 minute rounds. But I wish I still had the whole video of the fight. I wish I had it. At one point, it was on YouTube, but I think it got removed at some point. But it was on YouTube because I would love for you to see that fight and tell me
Yeah.
who won the fight. So
Okay.
let me go back to this. Like I said in the beginning, his coach was the owner and promoter of the league that we fought in, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Brother, I came out of that cage looking like I look right now. Not a scratch on my body, not a
Yeah.
single scratch. He came out of there with his nose all bleeding, his ribs completely busted up. I think I broke his rib. I think his might have been broken as well. He was bleeding everywhere. His whole side of his body completely purple. He didn't land like anything on me. The only thing he did, he took me down a couple of times in which he was not able to hold me down. I got back up, right?
Okay.
During that fight, he hit me on my balls 3 times. Three low
Oh,
blows.
shit.
Three low blows. Yeah, knees and he. I think he kicked. It was 2 kicks to the balls and one knee to the ball, right? And typically in an MMA fight, the first time you get a warning.
Yeah.
Second time, you get a point deducted, right? You get a point deducted. Third time, typically would be disqualification because it's like, okay, three
Yeah.
times the same thing, you get DQ'd. After 3 times, he did not even get a point deducted. He got 3 warnings. That was it.
Ah.
Three
Yeah.
warnings. That was it, right? And after the fight, I swear on everything. After the fight, one of the judges, so that was later on that night, one of the judges came up to me and he said, "What happened tonight was absolutely fucking bullshit." He said, "There's no way he won that fight." He said, "I had you winning that fight." The other 2 judges gave the fight to him. He goes, "You should have won that fight. I will never judge for these guys again." He goes, "You do
Yeah.
understand that his coach is the owner and promoter of the league, right?" He goes, you did know this before you took on this fight, right?" And I
Yeah.
said, "No, I did not know this." He goes, "Oh, yeah." He was like, "Nobody told you that." I said, "Nobody told me that." He goes, "His coach is the owner and the promoter of the league. There's a reason why you lost tonight." He was like, "You did not lose that fight." He was like, "They
Yeah.
gave him that fight." He goes, "Enough for nothing." It got to a point where I wanted to jump up and scream at the ref and say, "Why are we not deducting a point? Why are you not calling for a point deduction?"
Yeah.
He goes, "Because that was 3 times." I was like, he was like, "Dude, I'm sorry." He goes, "I'm really sorry." He goes, "I'm just glad that that was an amateur fight, not a pro fight, because it would
Yeah.
suck for you to have a loss like that on your record that you
Yeah.
clearly won. You were set up to lose from the very beginning." So,
But I
and
suppose if if I'm to make any instance out of that, I think you probably learned your lesson, and I
I
think
did.
your whole pro record is either knocking people out in the first round or it's submissions. You ain't letting it really go to the judges again. So there's probably, and again, maybe it's not just that, but I'd say you learned a lesson as well that look, subjective shit is always going to happen. You need to really make it objective. Knock the
Yep.
guy out, submit him. And man, your highlight reel is very impressive. There's a
Thank
lot of
you.
first round stuff. There's a lot of ground and pound, all that. So does that play into the? I suppose Yann Oliveira now is that the I am never letting it go back to them judges scorecards, or is more your early finishes and all that? Is that just more a symptom of hunger and driven to prove your point now?
On the beginning, I remember when I had a conversation with my coach after that fight, and I remember talking to him on the phone, and one thing that I said to him that I still remember till today because I got really cool feedback from him. What I said to him was, I said, the worst thing that could happen happened, in which is I lost the fight. The worst thing that could happen, I lost the
Yeah.
fight. I said, but I came out without a scratch. I'm not hurt. I was like, and I feel good about it. I said, I'm ready to start training and go again.
Yeah.
And he said, that's the best thing you could have said. He's like, that you have the right attitude, and I'm so glad you
Up
said what you
there.
just said, right? So he was happy with my attitude when it came down to that. So what? And then what I said to him is, I said, I will never again let a fight go to decision. I said it's just not going to happen. I said from now on, every time I fight, I am going to throw everything with bad intentions and to try to knock the guy out and finish him. So from now on,
Yeah.
that's how I will fight. And he was just like, I love it, you know. And so the very next time I fought, that's what I had in my mind. And I ended up fighting in the same place but for a different league. It was in the same location, but it was for a different league now.
Okay. Yeah.
And but I went into that fight knowing in my head that I am ready to kill this guy. I said, this is not a fight. This is a murder scene. I'm going to murder this kid. And it got even more intense when we were in line the day of the fight. We were in line to get checked by the doctors before the fight. It was like a pre-fight medical thing that they did. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he's literally behind me with his brother, Pedro Gonzalez, was Christian Gonzalez and Pedro Gonzalez. And in which I'm very good friends with Pedro now, you know. But his brother Christian, I was fighting Christian that night, and he smacked me on the back of my head, just a little tap, just jokingly, you know what I mean? And I turned around and I looked at him, and I was like, "What's up?" And he was like, "I'm gonna fuck you up tonight," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "Yeah, no, you're not." And he was just like, and then eventually, if you end up fighting my brother, he's gonna fuck you up too. And I looked at Pedro, and I'm like, yeah, I was like, all right, yeah, sounds good, right? I didn't get confrontational. I got cold. At that very moment, I went dark and I turned into a killer. The only thing I could think about in my mind was, I am going to murder you tonight. First of all, you put your hands on me is one thing I don't like. I don't like when people like that just come up to me and start touching me and feeling me and don't. First of all, don't touch me. You know what I mean? Like I'm about to fight you. Don't come touching me, right? That's how I was at that time. Um, so I felt myself get very dark at that very moment, and
And man,
I had a different
because
mindset.
we we were talking off camera, and that's what we talked about, that kind of chilling calmness you bring when you're going into
Yeah,
the octagon like that. It that chilling calmness freaks me out more than that, because I've seen
yeah,
lads get really leery. You know, the loudest guy, the guy screaming and shouting, he ain't gonna do much. It's that guy that's sitting down, that's as calm as mill pond, is the guy you really have to watch out for. And
yep,
it's so interesting that you say that then, that, they probably, smacked you in the back of the head or whatever, thinking, oh, I'm going to get a reaction out of this guy. See, can we get into his head? Because that's obviously what they're trying to achieve.
right.
But, they must have got a fright when you're like, turn around and it's just like stone faced, cold,
Oh yeah,
calm. Like, it's like, oh shit, how do you read someone like this? How do I, that's that game plan isn't after working. So
yeah,
where does that come from then? That calmness, or like, because man, I've got a club in the head, I've got bashed around in a nightclub and stuff like that, but a fight just sparks up straight away, adrenaline surges, you're in a fight. I've never had to deal with 12 weeks trying to prep for a fight and like thinking of all the scenarios and all that. And I can only imagine like that it'd like I'd obsess with it. If I had to go through that. So you have a 12-week camp. How are you, or does it not come into your head? Like, are you just like, it's just a fight where's your mindset for the camp, knowing that you have to go in and fight someone? As most fights happen around the world, it's in like on a street, or it's in a nightclub or a pub or something, and it's instantaneous and then it's over. But there's a certain difference between someone that has to go into like a 12-week almost meditation of, I'm going to get my face broke in, or I'm going to break someone's face in. How are you mitigating that with your thoughts, or where's your head at?
So it's just natural. It becomes very natural for me. The way my mindset changes and the way I change altogether, because the way I start to look at it is like, this is a war, right? We're going into war now, and I have a dream to achieve. I have a goal set in place, and once I have something in my mind, if I say I'm going
Yeah,
to do it, there's absolutely nothing that can stop me from doing what I say I'm going to do. And at that very moment, everything that's a dream to me, everything that means a lot to me, I am willing to die for, right? Just like I'm willing to die for my family. I'm willing, if we were in my house and 50 men walked in and try to get to my family, I will fight every single one of them. I will die before I let them get to my family, right? And I see my dreams the same way. You know,
okay,
we only have one life. We only have one shot to make our dreams come true. And I'm not going to let another man get in the middle of that. I'm not
yeah,
going to let another man take that away from me. It's just not going to happen. So if you're going to try to take it from me, believe me, you need to kill me. You got to kill me before you take my dreams away from me. So
yeah,
to me, it's very calming. You know, that a lot of people, um, and a fight is a war. Truthfully, when you get in there, it is a war. But for me, it's so peaceful. It becomes peaceful. Everything becomes quiet. Um, and I look forward to that moment the entire fight camp. The only thing I think about the entire fight camp is how I cannot freaking wait for the cage to close behind me, and for that man to be standing across the cage from me, and for that man to understand, when he looks at me in the eyes, that his only way out is if I knock him out, or if he taps out, or if the referee pulls me off. But when I'm in there with him, my only intention is to separate him from consciousness. I want to kill him. That's the best way I can explain. I am a I'm a stone cold killer when it comes down to fighting. Once I step in there, I'm ready to kill him. But if
and
you
I
want to
think
hang out
that's
with
probably
me
what.
outside the cage, I'm the nicest guy. I'm not violent at all outside of fighting. I'm a very I'm a very nice guy to hang around. I respect everybody. I treat everybody well. I'm very calm and relaxed, and that's where I find peace. Is where when I get to step in there and I get to be violent.
Yeah,
It's my getaway, you know? It's like that saying, it's better to be, a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, and and that's me.
yeah. Definitely, I like that saying. I'm gonna bank that one now for future use. But
Yep,
yeah, I think that's because there's a huge distinction there in that mindset. Number one, it's like almost a reversal of what most people will feel. Most people will absolute crumble under not only the pressure, but the act of having to defend themselves, or having to, try and strike someone else, take them down. That kind of fight to the death, as you put it. That would cripple most people. But I think the fact that you find calmness in that shows probably, you know, there's obviously you're probably wired up in a different way, in a very good way. Not to
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
not to say that you're wired up in a
No,
wrong way,
no, I get
but
it,
you're
I
wired
get
up
it.
in a very unique way that finds calmness. And man, from a lot of like hearing about like a lot of soldiers, like a lot of special forces or SEALs teams or anything like that. One of my favorite books I've ever read. It's called Bravo 20. It's from this author called Andy McNabb. He was an SAS soldier, which is the UK Special Forces. But he's like he comes from it's the most amazing book, but they get pinned down anyway, and they go on this odyssey of trying to survive. But he talks a lot in the book about just, feeling calm and just that under pressure. It was just like the whole book is raw from this perspective that, it is what it is. He's getting his he's captured by the enemy and he's getting his teeth pulled out, and it's still like, there's a calmness there. And I think it's a very rare thing in people. Uh, and so to probe probably a bit more into that, Jan, like, do you think that was born in you from day dot, or do you think that's a product of upbringing? Do you think it's a product of getting into the fight game and finding that confidence early on? Where does that come from? Because or maybe it's all the them variables intersecting, but where is that coming from, do you think?
That comes from my upbringing, 100%,
Okay.
100%. It comes from all the things that I've been through in life, and
Yeah.
having to deal with things at such an early age that, most adults won't even deal with, you know?
Okay.
So, yeah, I had my upbringing wasn't all bad, but I had a lot of moments of darkness that has made me who I am, that has triggered the switch, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, for sure. It's got a lot to do with my upbringing.
And Jan, what age were you when you moved? So you moved from Brazilian in kind of farm country and stuff like that. You moved to the US. What age were you, and what was that experience like? I suppose, like, were you English speaking then, or were you just speaking kind of Portuguese, or, you know? Yeah, I'd say it must have been chaos, man.
It was difficult. I came to America from Brazil when I was 14 years old. And I'm
Okay.
gonna I'm gonna throw you another really massive curveball here that's gonna
Yeah.
intrigue
Yeah.
you a little. So I met my father for the first time when I moved here from Brazil. I never knew my dad. So my dad got to America the same day I was born in Brazil. So I had never met my father. My father had never came to see me, to visit me. Back in the day, there was no FaceTime, there was no video calling or
Yeah.
anything like that. I had never seen my dad. I only knew what he looked like through pictures, right?
Yeah.
And so I met my father for the first time when I came here from Brazil at the age of 14. And it was very difficult because my father was not ready to be a parent to a teenager. He he was not ready for that. And and before I say anything about my dad, I'm gonna start off by saying that my father is a very different person today than he was back in the day.
Yeah.
My father and I, we have a phenomenal relationship today. He helps me out a lot with a lot of things. Anytime if I need my dad for anything, I can call him. He comes straight to me and does whatever I need him to do. My father and I have a great relationship. My father's a very good man today. But so I wanted to get that out of the way because I don't want anybody to have
Yeah.
the wrong impression of my dad. But my dad was not that same person back then when I was 14 years old. We didn't get along. We didn't get along well. He wasn't ready to be a parent to a teenager. And he was raised back in Brazil. The way he was raised by my grandfather was, you did something, you get beat. You know what I mean? In Brazil, in the culture, it is normal for your parents to beat you and whack you with things and whack you with a belt and sandals and shoes and whatever. So my dad was raised that way, and he took and he treated me the same way. One thing that my stepmother has told me, she was like, Jan, your father is bipolar. I had a stepmother when I moved here, and she was like, he is bipolar. He shows a lot of signs of being bipolar. He won't go and get tested to make sure. She was like, but I've done a ton of reading on it. I've done a ton of research, and your father shows every sign of bipolar. And so my father would go from being very happy and everything's good and everything's great to out of nowhere just exploding, and he would just beat the shit out of me, you know? And so within the first month that I moved here from Brazil, he beat me, you know? And to me it was such a shock. I was so shocked when he beat me because I was like, holy shit, like I just met this man and he was supposed to be my dad and my protector, and and he's beating me for things that I really don't deserve to get beat for. The first time he beat me was because I missed the bus. I missed the bus to school one time, and he was so enraged by that. And mind you, I've never taken a bus to school in my life. In Brazil, I walk to school. I grew up, I will literally give you the address so you can go online and look it up yourself. I legit lived across the street from the school that I attended. I would literally walk across the street, and I was at the school. My whole life, I had never taken a bus. I had to take a bus, and so here I am. I didn't even speak English or nothing at all. They said is you're gonna walk to this location. You're going to walk to this location, you're going to stand there, and you're going to wait for the bus to come by. And when the bus comes by, you're going to take that bus and it'll take you to the school, and then you just take the same bus back home. No problem, right? The
Yeah.
first bus that came by just so happened to be a city bus, not a school bus. I didn't know. I didn't know the difference. I didn't know. So I hop in the city bus, and this city bus I just stayed in the bus and never got to the school, so I never got out. I just rode around in the city bus for hours and hours and hours. You know, man, it was, so I got beat for that. And then also another time I got beat was this kid in my school. I still remember this. I have no idea why. I swear to you, I could not tell you if you put me on a lie detector. I could not tell you why he did this. I don't know because I didn't speak English at nothing. But he just randomly came up to me and put his finger on my face. And he said something about shit. Something like I'm a piece of shit or something like that. But he put his finger on my face. I have no clue why because I couldn't even communicate with the kid or anybody. I didn't speak English at all. But I still remember the lesson that my grandfather taught me when I was a kid was never let another man put their hand on you. If you're ever cornered and you have no way out, you fight your way out. Don't let anybody touch your face. That was one of the biggest things with my grandfather. Don't let anybody ever touch your face. And my grandfather he spanked me when I did stupid shit when I was a kid, which was normal. My grandfather never beat me for something I didn't deserve. That I can tell you. I've done many things to deserve a beating, and I got it every time. My grandfather never
Yeah.
beat me for no reason. One thing my grandfather never did, he never touched my face. Ever.
Yeah.
Nobody.
That's a very
And
personal thing. Like it's up near the neck and stuff. It's too vulnerable.
it's a very personal thing. And this kid put his finger on my face in front of people and called me name. My first reaction was to just punch him. I just fucking punched him so hard. I knocked him to the ground. And it was just a one punch thing because immediately, like when I punched him, he fell and he got up and ran away and told somebody. So the principal called. And I remember my dude, I got home, my father beat my ass. But then the next day he came into school to figure out what happened, why I did what I did. And I explained to him that principal at the time, I'm going to say her name, Miss Caradonna. She saved my life. That woman was so good to me. And once I
Bless her, man.
finally, her and I still talk till today. She was my principal at 14 years old, and she became my history teacher in high school. Her and I have a relationship till today. We still talk. And but I remember when I came in and I explained because they were just like, "Why did he punch the kid in the face?" So I explained, and my father was like, "Oh, okay, so that's why you did that."
Yeah.
But to me, that made me so cold because my father didn't even care to listen to me first and understand me why I did what I did. You know, because if it was my kid and something very similar has happened in school one time where somebody bullied my daughter. My daughter did punch the kid in the face. And my daughter thought she was going to be in massive trouble because one thing I tell my kids, you don't ever put your hands on nobody. That's not a thing. We don't do that. So she thought she was going to be in trouble so much that when I walked into her room, she was crying, thinking she was in trouble. And I listened to her. I was like, I want to know why you did what you did because I know you wouldn't do that for no reason. And she explained to
Yeah.
me. And my
Exactly.
reaction was, And you know what I said to my daughter? Next time he does that again, punch him in his face again. You're never gonna let a boy bully
Harder.
you, a boy or girl or nobody. Don't ever let anybody bully you. And if the school is not doing anything about it, you punch him right in his face. And when your school calls me, I'm gonna say I told her to. Now get her father here. Bring his father. Bring
Yeah,
the kid's father here because him and I are gonna have a conversation. Because if he
yeah.
can't
He'll
fix
shit
his
the
kid,
pants.
then I'm gonna fix him. You know. So I wish my father gave me that, and he didn't. That
Yeah,
made me, and that I feel like was the beginning of when I got cold. When I started to be
yeah,
cold, is when I just met this guy, and he's already beating me. He's supposed to protect me. He's supposed to defend me. And the school calls and says I punched somebody in the face, and he doesn't even care to listen to me first. Why I did what I did. The first thing he does is walk in and start beating me with a belt and saying all these ridiculous things to me. That was hurtful. That hurt me. That made me very cold. And one of the biggest reasons, I think that's probably the only reason why he believed it, is because this girl that was next to me, that was supposed to be like helping me, she spoke English and Portuguese. She was the only Brazilian chick in school. So she kind of hung around me a lot. She was helping me out a lot. She vouched for me. She said, yes, this kid, his name was Danny. He was like, Danny did walk up to Jan and put his finger in Jan's face and called them names. And you could tell Jan was confused. He didn't know what to do because this kid has his hand in his face. So Jan punched him in defense. And that's when like they were like, oh, okay, he is telling the truth. That did happen. So he was defending himself. And I'm like, why wouldn't you just believe me anyways? You know what I mean? Like I just moved here. I don't speak English or nothing at all. Like why would I just randomly punch somebody in the face? I'm trying to make friends. I want people to like me. I'm trying to be friendly with people, not punch people in the face for no reason, you know? So yeah, man, that was the start of me getting very cold. And but then my father beat me many of times after that, you know. At one point he sent me back to Brazil with a one-way ticket, and he told me he
Oh
didn't want to.
shit.
He told me he didn't want to be my father anymore. Um, one time he said, "I wish I could just send you back to Brazil and make sure you can never come back." He did that. He said those things to me. You know, um, he and then I started to realize I was like, man, my whole life I've been passed around. I lived with my grandfather. At one point, I lived with my mom. At one point, I lived with my aunts and uncles. I've lived in so many different houses and so many different people. I've never had a stable home. And now, when I'm finally with my father, he also is trying to pass me off to somebody else. He's also saying, I don't want this kid, you know? And to be very honest with you, I'm very straightforward. I I've never done anything crazy or ridiculous that any other kid wouldn't do. You know what I mean? I never got involved in
Yeah.
drugs and drinking and doing crazy shit. Stealing and all this other stuff. I've never got into stuff like that. I was never that kid. The normal the kid thing that I would do is I'd come home late. I'd not show up when I said I was going to be home. I would get into a fight every now and again in school. Or I'd get bad grades, or I would talk back to my teacher. Normal things. I've never done anything out of this world, to be treated that way. Um, and so I that's when I started to feel like, do I just not belong? Do I don't belong here? Like, I don't belong to anybody? Everybody just wants to pass me around, and a whole different side of me started coming out where I started to get really cold, and I had this mindset of, you know, uh, maybe I'm better off dead. Like maybe I just don't belong here. And I didn't care at that point. I was just like, hopefully I'll die soon, because nobody wants me anyways. My father's pushing me off. The only person that's never made me feel that way was my grandfather. My grandfather, my grandmother, he was the only person. My grandfather fought for me. He wanted me no matter what. My grandfather, I was the last one to leave my grandfather's house. He had 11 kids, and he raised them all. They all went to college. They all graduated. They all did well. And but my grandfather, I was the last one to leave my grandfather's house, and he was the only person that never turned his back on me, that always wanted me. And
And Jan, was that back in Brazil or was it in the
yes,
US? It was in
back in
Brazil.
Brazil. It was in Brazil.
Ah, okay.
So here I am in a whole new country, whole new culture. I don't
Very
speak the
disconnected
language.
then.
My grandfather is thousands of miles away. I finally meet the man who was supposed to be my hero. I looked up to this guy. Like, this guy is supposed to protect me and take care of me, and this guy is beating me, and this guy is just not taking care of me. What do I do? Like, what's going on? Why is my life like this? Why is my life like this? And then eventually the beatings became so brutal with my dad that I ended up in foster care. So
Fuck, man.
I was in foster care from the age of 15 all the way up to the age of 18. Um,
Jesus Christ! Like,
and
what goes through your head then? Like, and I suppose,
uh,
like, the thing I'm getting from it, anyway, just from looking from a very much like looking through the glass window inside, is there's probably a huge like absence of belonging going on in your life. So
huge.
you left this like your grandfather who was probably like kind of a rock in your life where you had a semblance of belonging, and then you start to get tossed around, man. It's like it seems like that whole like collapse of belonging within yourself, like, and
Yeah.
yeah. So what does that do? Like, so because like when someone feels like they don't belong, it can turn very dark very quick, and I think it did. But I think you've been able to manufacture it in a way where you were able to turn that darkness into a certain level of fuel, or as you say, I think I've heard you quote a lot of times, controlled violence. So you're able
Yes.
to unleash it in a fight, and then you're able to probably switch it off again. But yeah, that I suppose absence of belonging. Like, what does that do? Does it tear you up? Did it make you numb? What did it actually do to 18-year-old Jan or 17-year-old Jan?
It made me, in a lot of ways, it made me numb, and it made me feel disposable. It made me feel
Shit.
like no matter where I go or who I'm around, they will just get rid of me. The second I slip, the second I make a mistake, they are ready to get rid of me. I honestly felt like I didn't belong in this world, and many a times I went to bed. I'm gonna be very raw and honest. I went to bed many times wishing I wouldn't wake up the next day, wishing. And
Fuck,
I
man.
and there
That
and
is
there were days I would wake up the next day and I would say, "Fuck." Instead of being thankful to be waking up and being blessed to live another day, I was like, "Fuck." I woke up. You know?
But when you don't
I,
have that belonging, like, that's how probably imperative it is. And when you don't have that rock, and when you feel like everything is like, we're dictated by our mind, and if our mind feels like that we're inadequate or we're being tossed around or we don't belong, it gets very dark very quick, and it can go into all sorts of, like very dark places. But I suppose looking at that, so this is what I think we're around similar age, probably 36, 37.
yeah, I'm 35.
35, right? So
Yeah.
we have, so there's a good chunk. There's a, what, 14 years. So how has it, like, where's life now then? So, and I know there's a huge journey in between, but has it come to the stage where now it's like that shit doesn't affect me, or it does affect me, but I've controlled it. I master it now. It doesn't master me.
Yeah, so it definitely does not master me anymore. Um, I still do show signs at times, um, where I feel like, you know what, if if people want to lose me, if people don't want me, that's fine. I'm used to being replaced anyways. And my wife started picking up in a lot of those things to a point where my wife has looked at me and she said, "Jan, I am not going to walk away from you. I am
Yeah.
not going to let you go." She's
Same.
like, "Everybody else let you go. Everybody got rid of you. I am the one person that won't." She's like, "And your kids won't either." You know? And so there are times where I feel frustrated and I show signs of like, dude, what the fuck? But the second that starts to come out, I just remember where I was and where I am today, and I see what I have today. And and I have been through dark days. I have had times where I was just like, you know what? I don't want to live anymore. I just want to be done. I have had those days. I have had those times. And but then I see my kids. I have
Yeah.
two phones. I have a work phone and I have a personal phone, right? My business line and my personal line. Um, both of the phones, the screensavers of my phone are my kids. Both of them. It's the same picture on both. And it's like that for reasons. And one of the reasons is, so every single time I look at my phone, I see these are my reasons to keep going. These are my reasons to be better, to be a better man, to be a better person, to be a better father, a better businessman, to be a better fighter, to be a better man of God. These are my reasons here. These are my reasons to not believe that maybe I'm better off not being here, right? These kids depend on me and they need me. And I would never want to know what kind of hurt they would feel if somebody had to tell them that their father was no longer with them, that their father was gone forever. I wouldn't want to see the kind of hurt they would feel, because my children are very attached to me. They are extremely attached to me, you know? So I would never want to inflict that kind of a pain on my kids, on my wife, on the people that love me, on my family. And so
But
I have,
Jan, like, do you feel like do you still feel like inklings of that these days, or do you feel like, no, I've gone through absolute shit. I felt rock bottom, which I can only imagine, literally at the fucking very bottom of the floor, smashed against the tiles on the floor. Like, do you feel like, I'm looking at, and I know your story. You have a successful construction business. You fight because you want to, not because it's, you're shit ass broke and you need to fight. Everything looks good now, man. Or from what I can see anyway. Like, or does that still not is that still not sufficient to wipe away the kind of that pain of the past? Like, where like, yeah, what's the thought pattern now?
yeah, so it is, to be very honest, it is not enough to wipe away the feeling that I felt in
Yeah,
the past. Unfortunately, it's not. I wish it was, but I don't let it affect me like that anymore. I turn
yeah,
it into fuel, and I turn it into a lesson learned, so I can make sure that my children don't ever have to feel the struggles that I felt. My family don't ever have to feel the hurt that I felt. you know I
yeah,
don't want them to feel those things, so I take those feelings and I turn it into fuel. I turn it into a lesson, you know to make sure that I always remind myself to be the best that I can possibly be for them, you know? So
yeah.
it's very important to me.
And
So
Jan,
it's
I suppose coming from almost a left of field question, like, do you think it's possible to overwrite that? Like, do you think, like, and this is a question I'm going to have for a lot of guests that are going to kind of be on the podcast. Is there a way, like, is there a moment where you can say, whoa, that's after overwriting? Like, if you remember, like, we used to have VHS tapes and you
yeah,
could literally,
yeah.
I could overwrite what I recorded on it. Do you think that's possible, like, for people, or are we just, we have our trauma, we have the struggle in our past. It's going to be there it's in a dormant form or a latent form. It's going to be out there for a fuel, or it's going to be there. It's going to burn you. It's going to be a fire. Do you think it goes away, or do you think we just kind of evolve strategies to be able to kind of straddle it, or it straddles us?
I don't think it ever goes away because it hasn't gone
Yeah,
away for me.
yeah,
And I guess it would depend also on the type of trauma, that you
yeah,
endured, Um, I know people that have gotten raped, that you
yeah,
would never know, but behind closed doors, sometimes they're a mess. They're a
yeah,
mess. So I guess it depends on the type of trauma that you went through, that you had to endure, and so for me, I don't think it'll ever fully go away.
Yeah.
But I have learned to master it and to almost put a wet blanket on top of it, and not let it control me. Of
Yeah.
course, we all have our days, right?
Yeah.
And
100%, man.
I've had days where something affects me a lot and really brings me down. And and I'll write it out. I'll write out the feelings, I'll let it go through me, and and do its thing. But the next day I wake up and I say, all right, I'm ready to make this day my bitch. Like that
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
feeling's not coming back today. We did that yesterday. We went through it. All right, we got it out of the way. Cool. Today is a new day. So that's over. And that's it. So you just find strategies and you find ways to deal with the trauma. So
And yeah, and that probably leads me on to my next question, because we're going to have probably listeners that have gone through similar shit, and maybe it gets them down, or maybe it's, the weight on their back breaks them down sometimes. Is there any advice you'd give after, your years of experience, that going on to into the fight and all that kind of game? Is there any advice you'd give to people that are maybe younger, that are like, oh, fuck, this shit keeps eating at me, it's breaking me down. How do I overcome it? How do I master this, or how do I straddle it rather than it fucking getting at me? Is there any advice you'd give to people?
absolutely. One advice I'm going to start with is that don't be a victim. Don't play victim of any of the things
Yeah,
that you went through. Don't let it be an excuse as to why you do things this way versus this way, the other way, right? Don't let it be an excuse, right? Don't
yeah,
don't let it be more painful than it has to be. And one thing that I've explained to my wife during certain situation is don't suffer twice. Okay, don't
wow, I
suffer
like that.
twice. Um, if you already suffered, right? You went through it. That happened. You suffered. You got it out of the way. Don't suffer twice. It already happened. It's done and over with. Now let's move on, right? So that's one thing that I've learned is to not suffer twice. Don't let it be an excuse as to why you do what you do and why you are who you are. You can either turn it into a reason for you to fail, or you can turn it into a reason for you to succeed. You can turn it into
Yes.
fuel. And that's one of my advices, and also, you know, prove everybody wrong. Prove everybody fucking
Yeah.
wrong. I remember, I remember a long time ago getting to an argument with one of my teachers in school, and I remember her saying to me is, "You better hope that soccer works out for you because I don't think school will." You know, and then you know how many times I've wanted to go to the high school and look at her and say, "Hey, I make your yearly salary in a week." All right, I was like, and you remember how you told me that I better hope that soccer would pan out for me? You know how you said that? I was like, soccer did not work out for me. But guess what? I make enough money today where I make more money than most soccer players in the MLS. You kidding me?
Yeah.
I was like, I
That's
don't,
what it's
you,
about, man. And
it's
like,
like I don't, So don't let it be an excuse. Don't believe when people tell you that. It's so cliche, but it's so true. Everybody will say, don't believe when people tell you you can't. It's so cliche, but you know
yeah,
what? It's true. It's true. When I started my construction company, there were doubts. There were people who were just like, yeah, man, make sure you keep your regular job. And I did. I kept I kept my regular job for a full year. I made $1 million with my business while still working for another company, making like 16, 17 bucks an hour when I made $1 million with my business. It was
that must
discipline.
be
It
that must
was
be
just,
gratifying though. Like,
dude, it's just
and is there a
discipline.
level where I've done that? Like, does that empower you then to go, okay, I want more? Or it's like you get more emboldened, you get, more driven, more motivated? Or is it like is it like, okay, I've done this to revenge, prove people wrong, or is it going down, I'm really driven, I want more of this?
Yeah, it does. It makes you driven. It shows you that, when you look back and you said, look at where you started and look where you are now. What makes you, who says that it has to stop here? Who says that you can't achieve more, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to tell me that I can't achieve more. When I started my business, this is true story. And everybody that's close to me will tell you this is true story. Even my ex will
Yeah.
tell you it's true story because she was around for that. When I started my business, I had $555 exact to my name. That's all I had. $555. I got a job. I got a side job to do, painting at a customer's house. And I just gave my all. I said, this is going to be the best job these people have ever seen. I'm going to blow them away. I am going to take my time. I'm not going to rush. I'm going to do a
Yeah.
fantastic job. And they're going to, they're going to recommend me to other people. And I'm just going to keep going. But that's all I had to my name. I took that
The
money.
mindset.
I bought some tools. I bought some ladders. I had to rent some ladders from other people, from friends of mine, but I made it work. So in the beginning of the year, you start with $555, making $16, $17 an hour. To at the end of the year, you just made $1 million with your side hustle. So I see that, and that to me is motivating. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's how I started, and this is where we are now. I know I can do better. I expect better out of myself. And I truly believe that I can always be better. I can always do better. I can be a better employer to my employee. I can be a better businessman. I can be better to my customers. I can be a better husband. I can be a better father. I can be a better friend. I can be a better brother. I can be a better son, right? I can be a better fighter. I truly believe that you can always be better. But the biggest thing that makes me different than a lot of other people is that I don't want to be better than anybody else. I don't give a shit who my competition is. I could give a fuck less what their name is, how much money they make, what kind of jobs they do. I don't care who my competition is. I don't want to be better than them. I only want to be better than me. I want to be a better me. Tomorrow, I want to be better than I was today. That's where a lot of people miss the mark, is that they fascinate on being better than everybody else. They fascinate on being the best contractor. You know what? I want to be better than Conor McGregor. I want to be better
Yeah.
than Alex Pereira. I want to be better than Jose Aldo and Anderson Silva. I don't want to be better than none of them, right? Because I'm not them. A lot of times I can't do what they can do, but you know what? They might not be able to do what I can do, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not comparing me to them. They are who they are for a reason. I am who I am for a reason. So I don't want to be better than anybody else. I don't want to be better than them. I want to be better than me. That's the only thing that keeps me going. So,
But as well, I think it's so fascinating to hear you saying all that, because you're coming from it from a very holistic approach. You want to be a better husband, you want to be a better father. It's not fixated in one. I just want to be, richer, or I want to be more ruthless, or I want to be a better fighter. And I think that's such an important thing, that there's a balance, because obviously there's multiple Yann Oliveiras. There's the husband, there's the dad, there's the, businessman, contractor, there's the fighter. And I think to be able to be, to excel, it's a recognition of all these sides of ourselves, because we all have different sides. And I think if we, there's a responsibility to work on all them sides, because that's what grows you to be really successful, or to be really balanced. The worst person you'll ever meet in your life is one person that's just fixated on the wrong thing, or the thing. They might be really good at one thing, but they're a shit friend, or they're a shit parent, or they're they're ripping people off, but I'm really driven to get ahead, and that's their goal, but they're doing it at the expense of others. So it's really, I love hearing that you're it's a whole holistic view of being better and improvement. And I think that's what drives people. And I think that's a really good awareness of ourselves, is to be able to see ourselves from all them different angles.
Yep. Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
know,
Yeah.
definitely. And so, Jan, with the construction company, so obviously I'd read like that, you'd taken the time off, your I think it was your daughter was born at the time, you stop, but you set up the construction company. So you'd said there the first year you made 1 million and it was a side hustle. How was that experience then? Because then you have to go very much into a leadership role. So, okay, I'm going to be in charge of everything and you're making all the executive decisions. What did that feel like? What were the challenges? Was it a rush to you? Like some people, it's a rush to try, okay, I'm in charge. I'm going to see how I can do. Yeah. Tell us that kind of, I suppose, side of the Anne story as well.
Yeah. So it was, I think the scariest part about it all was just being responsible for others,
Yeah.
taking responsibility of other people's income and their life, that was a bit scary, but
Yeah.
but it was it was very cool to try to figure out, how to, how can I be different than everybody else, and run a successful business, because I have ran other business for other people and I've done a very good job with them. But now it was like amplified, because this guy's reporting to me for absolutely everything. I have to have all the answers, or if I don't have the answers, I got to have the resources to find out. Um, so it was very interesting, but it was it was very eye opening, and it
Yeah.
was just it was just awesome. It was just it was a good time to learn. I grew from it. I became a different person because of it. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, it worked out. It worked out, but it was one of those things that it was at first navigating through those challenges. It was a little bit scary, but I just said, you know what? I've been through a lot worse in my life. I've been through a lot scarier things in my life, and I was able to figure that out. So I got to be able to figure this one out. So,
Definitely.
and
And I think
and
I
it
think
was
that's
one of
probably
those
what's,
things that I couldn't quit. Right? I was in my mind. I was just like, there's no quit. I started this. I can't quit now. I have to figure it out. The only option is to figure it out and succeed. There's no quit. So
yeah.
yeah, once I put that in my
And I
head that there
think,
was no quit, there was no quit.
yeah, and I think this is what kind of strikes me as well, because I look up at the up and coming generation, the Gen Z and stuff like that, and I just see that, like that kind of struggle and stuff has been discouraged. Everything's about, being safe and like making it easier and stuff like that. And I think it's from everyone that I've talked to and stuff like that, or anyone that has a good success story, it nearly always starts off with struggle. And I think if we whitewash, or we wash out struggle from a generation, or we make everything too easy, we're not going to get like people that are going to succeed. Because I think a lot of what makes people succeed, and this is only my own opinion, this is very anecdotal, it's not based on empirical evidence, but what I've noticed with all people that succeed, there's struggle somewhere, whether it's emotional or if it's environmental or if it's parental. Struggle is almost like the fuse on the firework for that person to go succeed. And I just feel, the way modernity is going, there's just so much of, trying to remove struggle from the human story, which I think is very much at the detriment of progress.
Yep.
But it's so interesting to hear that, like, that's a part of your story as well. That's what's driven, I suppose, a lot of the success. It's that early on struggle, which is, again, shit to go through, and it's still with you. But again,
Right.
it's almost a springboard. It's a launch pad for you to go on to do greater things. Now, not everyone will have that point of view. Some people will externalize and they'll go into drug addiction or alcohol addiction. And there's a very fine line. So I suppose my question here now to you is, were you ever at that fine line of where, oh, shit feels horrible, I'm going to go take a whole lot of drugs, or I'm going to drink myself into oblivion to forget and escape? Was that ever a part of your story, or even anywhere near it?
Not even close. That was never an option.
Wow.
That was never
Yeah.
an option for me. I've seen too many people fall to drugs and alcohol. I had an uncle of mine that literally died from alcohol addiction, and in which my grandmother got very sick from his death. So this uncle of mine, he did pass away from alcohol addiction, and my grandmother's health completely deteriorated. My grandmother just like she couldn't walk anymore. She could barely talk. She was not doing very good right after my uncle passed away. And it was literally till today, everybody says my grandmother died from a broken heart. She died from
Yeah.
a
And it
broken heart.
happens.
And I truly do believe that that can happen. And, so that's why my grandmother died. And I remember my other uncles and my cousins talking about my uncle's death, and how he was so bad into alcohol at one point that he was drinking rubbing alcohol. He would take my grandmother's rubbing alcohol to drink just to get a buzz, because he couldn't go and buy alcohol or whatever. And so, man, I remember everything. I remember those things. And listening to how that went down, you know, I'm not going to be another, I'm not going to let that happen to me. I'm not going to be another one. And, I need to find, so to me, it was like, I need to find a different escape. Drugs, alcohol, something that alters your mind, your state of being is not an escape, because the second the high is over, you're right back to feeling the same way. And so
Or
then you're
worse.
or worse, and then you're constantly looking for that escape and finding a better high, and next thing you know, you're gone. Your brain is fried, or you die from an overdose, and you put yourself to a point where you just can't come back from it. You know, and I was intellectual enough and smart enough, even in a young age, to understand these things and not let myself ever be in that type of position. So
And
drugs,
Jan, so do
alcohol,
you have an
never an option.
escape? Like,
My
do you golf? Do you hike? Do you cycle? Do you shoot? Is it fighting? Is it getting in the ring and trading a few blows with a fella? What is the escape? Or is there
my
one?
my escape is to punch people in the face and kick them and choke them out.
Uh,
My escape, honestly, I have a couple different escapes that I enjoy very much, and one of them is fighting. I enjoy
yeah,
fighting. I enjoy fighting as an escape. Um, I love driving fast cars as an escape. Okay, going for a nice ride. Motorcycle. I love riding my motorcycle as an escape. But one big escape too. I love guns. I love shooting guns. I have a shit ton of guns. I collect, but I shoot them. I love shooting. I
yeah,
I have quite a few different types of escapes, you know?
yeah.
And but alcohol, drugs, that's not one of them. Those are not them.
You're more,
So
from what I pick up there. You're looking for a like, it's a rush. It's not
a
like,
rush,
because there's fast
adrenaline
cars, there's
rush.
motorbikes. Yeah, it's a
It's
rush.
adrenaline
And
rush. What
yeah.
did you? I don't know if you went far enough in my Instagram, but the other thing that I love doing, I love riding bows. I love bow riding, and
Oh, I didn't go that far.
you didn't go there. So yeah, you gotta go. You gotta go down a couple years. And
Man, that is nuts.
listen, I'm a madman in a lot of ways, and listen, if it gives me an adrenaline rush, I want to do it. I want to do it.
Yeah.
I love the adrenaline. There's one thing you will not catch me doing. And I've had friends beg me to do it. I had a friend of mine offer me $10,000 one time to do it, and I said, absolutely not. You can offer me $1 million, and I'm not doing it. I will not go skydiving.
No,
No
that you draw the
fucking way.
line of heights.
And listen, no, I don't mind heights. As a matter of fact, I'll walk around a roof. I'll go up a ladder. Heights does not bother me.
Yeah.
But to jump out of a perfectly fine airplane and hope that the parachute works, fuck that. You are not gonna catch me doing that. You could not offer me $1 million to do that. It won't happen. It just won't happen. I won't do it. You know?
Yeah.
It's
I
just
did.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
No, I've done a bungee jump.
Won't do
And
that either.
that
Won't
was
do that.
weird enough. And it was like, I used to live in Dublin. It was like one Halloween, they had a crane, man. I don't know what was going on. I shouldn't have did this. But they had like just a crane in like the cobble square of Smithfield. And it was like I was the last person to literally go up. It was free as well. It should have been all warning bells. And I got up there anyway, and I'm in like the bucket of the crane. And I'm like, what the fuck am I after doing? And they're like, oh, you can jump now. And I'm like, oh God. And I felt like that. And I was like, as I was falling, I'm like, never again. I like a rush. But the funniest thing, Jan, is right. I had a really bad flu at the time. And literally when I came down out of it and all, my flu had gone. I think it was just such an adrenaline surge that, who have we on here? Sorry, so for anyone
this
just listening, we have a little baby after joining Jan now.
this is Charlie. This is my
This is the
little girl.
future, is it, Jan?
This is my little girl Charlie. She's the newest one. She's 7 months old, and
Brilliant.
she is awesome. She is just awesome. I wanted to bring her on so she can say hi, so you can see.
Definitely.
So
Definitely. That's the future generation now, Jan. So
that's
all that hard work that you're putting in, man,
that's right.
they'll reap the blessing of all that. And I think
That's
that's
right.
especially coming from, an environment where you don't have everything handed to you or you don't have much. That's what it's about, man. You must feel so proud knowing that you're going to leave that girl, a good legacy.
My goal is to make sure that my kids have the life that I never had. You know,
Definitely.
to make sure that I leave a life behind for them that they can be proud of, that they can,
Yeah.
when I pass one day, when they get together, then they can say, look at what dad did for us.
Yeah.
Look at the position that he put us in,
Definitely, man.
So
And that's what
that's,
legacy is about.
yep. So, I want to make sure my kids are all set and, they don't have to endure the life that I did. So,
Definitely, man. And I think that's what it's about. Of each generation, I know my dad and stuff like that, not one of them ever went to like college or anything like that. My dad was the first, man. The first. And
yep.
he went back to college at 40, and he worked in the prison service all his life. And he went back to college at 40, man, and just worked his way up. And like, that's what drives me as well. I had that like figure I could kind of look up to and stuff like that. It spurred me on. I think that's so important. But
Yep.
Jan, we are nearly at an hour and a half, man, and this has just been honestly, this has been like one of my favorite chats. I think it was just so good, man.
Likewise.
We had a roller coaster ride, I think.
Likewise, man. That's it. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and again, I truly appreciate you having me on, man. Again, I've been a fan of your page for quite a while, and to me, it was very exciting. Very exciting to me to get a message from you about joining you on your podcast, and just know that I'm always willing to talk again. I'm always willing to whenever you want to have me on. I love chatting with you. You're a cool dude. I love your energy. I love your personality. Yeah, man. I
And
love
man,
it.
I feel we only touched the surface there, so definitely let's get another session in.
Let's do it.
Jan, upcoming fights. Where can people find you? Where can people learn more? Plug out in there now you want. And yeah, I'm really excited to hear when the next fight is or what's next on the card.
All right, guys. So here's what we got. So May 24th, I am fighting for Combat FC again. I am going down to Brazil at the end of this month. I'm going to be there for my my brother Mauricio. You guys should look. You guys really should check out Mauricio Hufi. His name is Hufi, Ruffy, on Instagram. He won the UFC Contender Series. On the Contender Series, he is fighting May 4th for the UFC. He's making his UFC debut, and so I'm gonna go down there to be there with him. And he's my favorite fighter, and so that's gonna be a lot of fun. And right after that, so I'm going to be training down there in Brazil. I'm going to be down in Brazil for about 3 weeks, training down there with him and his team. Then I'm coming back to America, ready to fight again for Combat FC. So Combat FC, May 24th. It'll be on UFC Fight Pass. I cannot disclose just yet what that fight is and who I'm fighting, but this is going to be a hell of a banger. It's going to be a great fight. It's going to be one good fight to watch. Not only that, but it's for something big. So
you have me intrigued, Yann.
That's it. That's what you can find. So yeah, man. That's what we're doing next. That's what we got going on, and I do hope to come see you in Ireland.
Definitely. If you're over in Ireland, Yann, hit me up. If not, and likewise, if I'm over your way in stateside,
come
I will
over.
definitely hit you up,
visit.
man.
Come visit.
You said you're having a party tonight. I'm jealous. I'm missing it.
Oh, and it's going to be a hell of a party. As an Irishman, you would really appreciate what's going on here tonight. So
lots of whiskey, hopefully.
Listen, the invite is open. You ever want to come to the States? Ever want to come visit? My doors are always open. We got plenty of room here, and come have a good time. So,
look. Thanks a million, Yann. Look, and I really appreciate it. Like, because before the even podcast it was kind of only an idea in my head. I reached out, you agreed to come on. So, man, thank you so much. You're always going to be welcome here. We'll do it again. We'll go deeper. And best of luck with the upcoming fight. I'll be messaging you beforehand anyway and stuff like that. But Yann, thanks a million. Yann Oliveira, thank you so much. And we will chat to you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Cheers, man.
See you. Cheers.
Thank you.
All right.